What's up, guys? This is Brave, and I'm back with another review of Ready to Love. This is season 4, episode 5, and let's go ahead and talk about it because I feel like we got cheated. If anybody got cheated, we got cheated because there were some relationships that were starting up that we didn't know anything about, and also it was definitely time for some people to go home. So let's go ahead and talk about the episode from the beginning. So, as we all know, Troy went home, thank God, because it was definitely time for him to go, and now the power is back in the guy's hands. So, Tommy ends up letting them know that they're going to be going to a masquerade party, and of course, this means that everyone's going to be dressed up, and for them to make sure that, they look really good. He also tells them to go ahead and make more connections and go on more dates. So let's go ahead and get to these dates. So the first date that we get is AJ and Jason. This is the second time that they have done a double date. I'm like, can you guys not do solo dates? Like, what's happening? But anyways, so AJ and Jason, they were taking out Alexis and Kyra. So I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting because as we know, Jason is interested in Kyra, and like I've said from the beginning, he was not interested in Alexis. And then you have AJ, he's interested in Kyra as well, and I feel like he tolerates Alexis. So on this date, I'm like, this is a interesting setup. So they go, I think it was ice skating or whatever, and AJ, he definitely spent his time with Kyra, and Jason spent time with Alexis. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with AJ and Kyra. One thing that I will say is that no matter how many dates I have seen Kyra go on, I feel like I still don't really know much about her. I feel like the guys do most of the talking. As what happens, in this date, we see that Kyra and AJ, they seem to be vibing with each other, but it's basically AJ saying how, they have met each other in the past, and he really wants to get to know her, and she's, in his top. That's pretty much what he said. Okay, that was pretty much it from the glimpse that we got of them. She really didn't have much to say. So let's go ahead and talk about Alexis and Jason. So at this point, Jason is asking her, how the process is going for her. And she's like, it's going fine for her or whatever. But she wants to know, where do they stand? Because as we already know, she has a child. Like, she wants to know, does he see himself coming into a relationship, with a woman who has children or not? Which is a very valid question. So his response is basically that he's having a hard time, separating, seeing her as the mother of one of his students or one of the kids that he coaches versus someone that he's attracted to. I'm sorry, but I call BS on this. You were not attracted to Alexis from the beginning, which is something that I have said. Jason had no interest in Alexis. He was just going to keep her in his back pocket for as long as he needed to, just in case. She was a just in case girl for him. That's how I see it. Just in case, nobody was really checking for him, he could always fall back on Alexis. So, the fact that he's saying that, he can't separate her being a parent versus, someone that he would want to date, sir, people do it all the time. There is no, I'm sorry, but you're like her son's basketball coach. What is this, Little League? I don't see how you're really seeing her as, oh, she's this parent. Sir, stop playing. Just say you didn't like her. Let's not waste people's time here. I mean, I will say, this season, there's a lot of time being wasted. But that's a whole nother situation. Let's go ahead and talk more about this Alexis and Jason, though. I just find it so interesting that now he's saying that, he wants to be so transparent that he's not really feeling her like that. But I'm like, why did it take you so many dates? Like, why did it take you so many interactions to figure out that you did not like her like that? Because I just find it interesting because this is something that happens later on. Now he's like, oh, I'm interested in Liz. And I'm like, but you just wasted all this time with Alexis. Now you want to go see what Liz is doing? I don't know. Like, at this point, I'm really questioning Jason's intentions, and I don't know about him. Like, there's just something about Jason now that I see. I'm just really not feeling him. So, let's go ahead and talk about this next date, because it is Stacy and Ron. Now, y'all, let's just say this episode, Ron became a whole other person for me. And here's why. Because Ron basically had a whole secret relationship with another castmate. He has, all these ladies who are now interested in him. I'm so confused because now we are on episode 5, you guys. Episode 5. And Ron is now like the man. And I'm like, sis, when did that happen? Because last time I checked, Stacy was over there checking for AJ and David and whoever else. Never Ron. The only person who we saw have any interest in that man was Chrysanthemum. And now things are a lot different. But let's just go ahead and talk about this date. So Stacy goes over his house or whatever, and he ends up, asking her about how is it, getting into dating after you've been married, and, figuring out how long she has been divorced, and, how her kids feel about things. So I'm like, okay, cool, it's going fine. So then next thing you know, she ends up asking, like, oh, how's dating going for you? And he's like, oh, the girls that are in my tops are like best friends. And I'm like, okay, I'm a little confused because all y'all just met each other, so how are y'all best friends? Come to find out, Chrysanthemum and Stacy have become besties, calling each other frick and frack. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Portia and Phaedra already did that. We're not redoing it. Find a new name, ladies. Find a new name. So Stacy wants to go further into this conversation, and she's like, well, basically both of us like the same guy, and she wants to know where she stands, as in, is she number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, where she stand or whatever. So at this point, he has to, let her know that he is more interested in Chrysanthemum than he is in her. And I'm like, well, yeah, Stacy, why would you think you will be number 1 when this is your first date with Ron? Unless y'all have went out previously and there are things that are happening that we don't know about. According to how this show is going, he's going out with Chrysanthemum before. He has never been out with you. Why would you think that you're number 1? Please let me know that. Like, I'm just so confused with this show, this episode, just because there was so many conversations about, am I number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number. And I'm just like, some of y'all have never been out, or y'all have only been out one time. How do you feel like you're somebody's number 1? Like, just how do you feel that? I'm so confused. And just like the fact that you can tell that Stacy felt some type of way that Chrysanthemum got chosen and not her. But at the same time, like, you have only been out with this guy one time, and this is the first time. Why would you expect anything different? I just really want to know her thought process. So now we get a date of Chris and Amber, and she comes over or whatever, and they're out here reciting mantras, putting their feet in dirt and grass. And girl, if you like it, I love it. Go ahead, be one and centered with the earth, whatever. So let's just get to the meat and potatoes of a date. They go ahead and have breakfast, and the conversation of marriage comes up. And basically, Amber is asking, hey, what do you feel about marriage? Chris's response is like, basically, if you want to get married, sure, we can do that, but that ain't, end game for him. Marriage is not end game for him. He says he would rather just go ahead and find his soulmate. That doesn't mean he will marry your ass. And to my surprise, she agreed. And I'm just like, are you agreeing just because you really like him, or do you actually feel the same way? That's my only question. Because what I've noticed is that Chris is doing the same thing that he did last season, and that is only focusing on one woman. But at the same time, I feel like no woman is checking for Chris, so I guess that's his only option. Same thing with Amber. I have not really seen her talk to many guys, but that is going to change next week because I did see the preview for the next episode. But yeah, it just seems like she really does like Chris, so whatever he's saying, she's buying it. Okay, so forget about that date. Let's talk about this this group date. And baby, when I tell you, I thought that they were about to, hit some salsa moves with like a real instructor. Nope. The instructor was Ron. Once I saw him trying to move his little hips and hit his little salsa moves, I said, you know what? You're surprising me again, Ron. Did not think you would be the instructor. So on this date, we have Ron and Chrysanthemum, you have Dietrich and Tressa, and we have Vernisha and, what is his name? Joel. So, as you know, everyone is dancing, and Ron, I will say he is a pretty good salsa teacher. I'm like, okay, cool. He ends up separating everyone into, different rooms. So that way each couple has a little bit of alone time. I said, okay, cute. So here's my only issue with this. Why did we hardly see Tressa and Dietrich? You guys, literally, we saw, Vernisha and Joel, they were kept doing the same move over and over again. And I'm like, okay, at least we see them trying. We saw a second, okay? Like maybe a total of 5 seconds of Dietrich and Tressa where she's like, I don't know if we're actually doing a salsa or if we're going to, if what we're doing is the cha-cha. And that was it. We did not get to see their interaction. Because on their date later, the way he put her directly into the friend zone, I needed to see that full interaction of Dietrich and Tressa while they were at this salsa class. Because, a salsa dance is kind of, it's intense. It can be more so on the sexual side. You're touching someone. I want to see their body language, and we did not get to see that. And that frustrates me. But back to Joel and Vernisha, it seemed like they were having a good time. He loves to touch her because she has that body yada yada. The one thing that I will say is that I do want to see more of Vernisha and Joel on a different level. And what I mean by that, I feel like for him, it's a lot of physicality, as well as he always mentioned how she's a single mom who's been through something. And I'm like, okay, I understand that you heard that part about the conversation, but what else do you know about her? And what else does she know about you besides the fact that you're a dad? You're a single dad who's taking care of his kids. You get what I'm saying? I feel like they need to have deeper conversations so that way he knows more about her, she knows more about him. Okay, but let's go ahead and talk about Ron and Chrysanthemum, because honestly, I feel like that was the whole point of this date, because they wanted to show us what happened with them. So Ron is doing his best, trying to hit his best salsa moves, but Chrysanthemum wants to get down to business. She's like, so I heard that, somebody else is actually your number one, who's in your top. And I'm like, okay, so maybe her and Stacy haven't talked, and she's talking about Stacy. Y'all, why is she talking about Alexis? Alexis, of all people, we done see Alexis date more of the other guys than anybody else. Honestly, we have literally seen Alexis go on multiple dates per episode. Versus some ladies, we don't even see them go on any dates. But we have never seen her take a glance at Ron. This whole time. The 5th episode. Come to find out, they out here pillow talking, having phone conversations every night. Really? that could have been some valuable information. I find it interesting that out of 5 episodes that we've seen, those two have yet to go on a date unless it hasn't been filmed. Like, I don't understand, or at least they haven't shown us. I don't understand how she's his number one and we have not seen any type of interactions with them. So now we have Chrysanthemum, who kind of has an attitude because he's not saying that, oh, well, actually, Chrysanthemum, you're my number one. Nope. He's sticking to the fact that he does have good conversations with Alexis. And, Chrysanthemum is in the mix, but his numbers are not changing. So she's feeling some type of way because she's basically feeling like she comes second to nobody. And I'm like, girl, the way this show is set up, at some point somebody's going to be number 2 and vice versa. So she, in her confessional, is like, oh, because Ron was never even in my... No, she didn't say he was never in her top. She said that he wasn't her number one choice. And I'm like, well, girl, who was? Because whoever your number one choice was never took you out on a date. So you should be happy that Ron is even interested because, like I said, I don't know if it's because, production is not showing us everything, but the only date that we have seen Chrysanthemum go on with anybody is with Ron, considering day 1, all the guys were like, Chrysanthemum. Everybody wanted to date her, even though we never saw no dates. So something ain't adding up. So you can tell that at that point, Chrysanthemum was over it. She wanted to be, the top girl, his number one. And that's just not what it was. He was more so still... I feel like Ron is coming from the point of, I'm still trying to get to know everybody. I'm still trying to get to know you. I can't, just go ahead and tell you you're my number one and not be honest and truthful. And I can respect that about him. Let's go ahead and talk about this date between Tressa and Dietrich, because this was so disappointing. So I can tell by the hug that he gave her that this was about to be a friendship date, and that's just what it was going to be. So she arrives or whatever, and she looks really nice, and they start talking about these spices. And the way that he's having this conversation, like, I feel like if you were really interested in somebody, you would not be like, oh, well, let me tell you about why you can't have imitation vanilla. And I'm just like, sir, there was nothing sexy about that conversation. Like, I thought that he was going to, try to be like, ooh, I cook with this spice and I cook this and that. I can make dinner for you. Really trying to, like, have some type of interest in conversation with her. I don't know if he thought he was just going to be like the spice educator for the day or what, but the vibe just was not there. But I feel like he set that tone for that, because I don't feel like she came in as a homegirl. I feel like she was allowing him to lead. I feel like she was saying, he's going to go ahead and lead the conversation. I'm just going to follow. I'm going to see where this goes. Because as a plus-size woman, she does have to question this guy's motives. And what is his whole purpose of taking her out on this date? Because as we can see, he was not interested in her. He kept her around because I guess he probably felt like no other lady was really interested in him for the moment. I don't know what was happening with Dietrich. But like I said, I feel like he set the tone of their conversation, and there was no flirting or anything like that happening. So once I saw that Tressa started to ask him, like, have you talked to some ladies more than others? And he was like, oh, yeah, I have. And then she goes on to the fact that, as a curvier woman, she knows that there are guys that will sleep with her, but they don't want to date her. So basically, she wants to know, where does he stand in that? Like, is this just some, on the low, I like you? Or are you actually wanting to pursue me? And actually, I'm very glad that she put him on the spot, because I feel like had he been on this date with another one of these ladies, he would have acted very differently. I feel like if Dietrich had been on this same exact date with, let's say, a Kyra or even a Liz or Alexis, whichever lady, I definitely feel like he'd be like, ooh, try this spice. Ooh, taste this. I can only imagine how he would react if there was another woman there that's not Tressa. Like, I'm sorry, but I just feel like he treated her like a homegirl the moment that she walked in. So, once she had asked him that, and then he let out that sigh, I said, oh no, bye Dietrich, go on somewhere. Because he then goes on to talk about how, oh, because if a guy wants to pursue you, that's what he gonna do, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, you're the one who, asked her out, and you're not exactly pursuing, so therefore she knows that this date is going nowhere. Now, when she was walking out the door, she was saying how, not out the door, but the date was over, and she was in her confessional saying that she wants to, see what's up with her other connections. And I'm like, well, who are her other connections? Because clearly there are things happening behind the scenes that we have no idea to. Because I do remember her going out on that group date with Jason, but we still never got a conversation out of Tressa and Jason. Like, I feel like there are certain ladies who get so much camera time, Alexis, but I don't get to see, like, what's happening with, like, Tressa. Like, I feel like we missed a lot of what's happened, because for her to say she has other connections with an S, I'm like, well, who are they? Please let me know who they are. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to this masquerade party. So, everyone arrives, they show up, they look good. There were two people who stood out for me. One being Alexis. This was probably the first time I would say that, she actually looked nice. I really did like the dress. It did kind of give me wedding vibes, but it was really a really nice dress. She actually even mentioned that, the dress kind of was like a wedding dress. I was like, okay, cool, she looks good. So the other person would be Liz. Liz won hands down as far as the looks goes. All the guys' jaws dropped when they saw Liz. And there was one guy in particular whose jaws dropped, and that was Jason. I'm like, okay, here we go. So first of all, when Liz walked through the door, of course, she was greeted by David, and they talked for a little bit. I must say that, like, he seems to really, really like Liz. And I feel like now that she has worn this and there are other guys gawking at her, that's going to be a problem, because I don't think he really saw much competition with the other guys when it came to Liz. But let's go ahead and talk about Jason and Liz. So, first of all, can we talk about how at one point the only thing he was looking at was her boobs? Yeah. I definitely do not have any type of respect for Jason at this point, because you only talk to Liz because of what she had on. Like, that's literally because she had her breasts out, or whatever, that's what you would consider it, because of the style of the dress, that is the only reason why you're talking to this woman. Wow, you're very shallow. I just find it to be so interesting how men really get away with completely ignoring you. And then the one time where you get dressed up and look really nice, it's like, oh, that's what she really can look like. Oh, let me try to get at her. And it's acceptable. Like, no, when I was dressed regular, you paid no attention. Don't try to smile in my face and try to get to know me now. But at this point, Tommy, he comes strolling in, and I'm like, sir, the mask, you just look real stuffed in right now. It's just a lot. He introduces his wife, and I'm like, okay, this is great that we get to see his wife again. And I mean, he even took notice that Liz looked really different. Just because she had straightened her hair, her dress was really nice or whatever. He even called it out, and I'm just like, that's interesting that he talked about how great Liz looked, but what about the rest of the ladies? Anyways, the party continues. So we have Stacy talking to Ron, right? And instead of her, still being interested in him, because as we know, he said that she was, I guess his number 3. I guess you would say that Stacy was number 3 because there's Alexis number 1, Chrysanthemum number 2, Stacy was probably number 3, right? So instead of her trying to move up in her own position, she just completely eliminated herself out of the situation with Ron, and it's like, oh, you should pretty much go for Chrysanthemum. And I'm just like, who does that? Like, I just find it so interesting that she completely dropped her and Ron being a possibility. Instead, not saying she should have competed, but I feel like if she was still interested, she could have been like, okay, I know that you have 2 other ladies that, you're interested in, but I still want you to see that I'm still interested in you as well. Nope. She basically is like, well, that's Chrysanthemum's man. Let me try to help her get her man. So we next get a scene of Alexis and Tommy's wife having a conversation. It was something that was short, cute to see, but that was pretty much all it was given. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the whole freaking frack situation. So Chris, KG, Chris, that's what I'm talking about. He is not feeling freaking frack. He's like, they were together way too much that night. As we know, he already don't like Stacy, but maybe there was a chance that he did want to get to know Chrysanthemum, but she was up under Stacy way too much. A lot of the other guys took notice that freaking frack were always together. Even Tommy was like, oh, so y'all gonna be together, the whole time? And they're like, yeah. So I don't know if they thought that they were going to be a package deal or what, but the whole freaking frack thing was absolutely played out. But one thing I was going to point out, though, was that I think it's funny that when the ladies are together, they're counted as freaking frack, and, the guys don't like it. However, why is it that AJ and Jason keep doing group dates together? That's them. I don't know what that partnership is either. But, I digress. All right, y'all. So we get to this conversation with Jason and Liz. And the only reason why he's even having a conversation with this woman is because of the type of dress that she has on. Not because of her personality, none of those things. He's literally sitting there grinning to whatever she's saying. I feel like whatever she was saying was going in one ear and out the other, because the only thing he saw was her body. Okay, so at one point, she asked him oh, well, who's in your top? And I'm just like, first of all, Liz, I like you a lot, but I don't think this is a question that you should be asking Jason, considering this is the first time this man even spoke to you. So he actually responds and says, oh, well, you're one of them. And I'm like, and what makes her one of them? Because this is your first conversation with her, and I don't know, I just feel very strange about everyone this season is worried about who's on someone's top, who's someone's bottom, who's number 1, 2, 3, 8, 9. I don't understand. Just get to know these people. Y'all are barely going on dates with them, but you want to be number 1. You barely said hello since the first time y'all met these people, but y'all want to be number 1. And then you have some of these ladies who feel like, I need to be number 1 in every man's mind, but I don't even know who I would choose. No, get it together. So back to the whole Liz and Jason situation. Jason is saying that, she's real ladylike. She gives off the Michelle Obama vibes. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about, but sure. To me, I feel like Liz is just Liz. I'm not about to say, oh, you give off Michelle Obama vibes. Like, what are you talking about? But she's eating it up. If she likes what he's saying, and now she feels a little conflicted because, of course, she's really feeling David, and now she's feeling Jason. We'll see how that works out for her, because I feel like David feels like him and Liz are in like some type of partnership, and we'll see how he feels about her, you know, probably going out with Jason. If I was to say who Liz should be with, I feel like Liz is more on the same page with David than she is with Jason, especially considering Jason is younger than her. And I think he's younger than her by like, over 5 years? So, yeah, I definitely think that she should go ahead and stick it out with David. Alright, so we next get a scene of Ron and Chrysanthemum. They're having a conversation. Oh, but when Alexis walks near them, he completely walks away, talking about I need to go see the real thing. Did y'all hear when he said that? Did y'all catch that mic pickup? I said, oh, Chrysanthemum, he ain't feeling you like that. And even in her confessional, Chrysanthemum was like, oh, go over there, go be with your number one. And I'm just like, girl, you cannot be in your feelings like this. If Ron ain't feeling you like that to where you're his top, you are his number one, then move around. Find somebody else, girl. So I find it funny that Alexis is talking about how, she has conversations with Ron, but then she also says, oh, but I still have AJ. No, baby, you don't have AJ. AJ ain't checking for you. He ain't thinking about you. At this point, the only lady that AJ even has eyes for is Kyra. So with this conversation, though, between Ron and Alexis, I don't like it at all. I don't like the fact that Alexis approached him talking about so where do you stand with Chrysanthemum? Why does that matter to you? This is only episode 5. Chill out. Because she then goes on to say, because when we were in deliberation, she made it seem like you guys are this, you guys are that. And I'm like, you did the same thing to Chrysanthemum by talking about how you and Ron be on the phone all the time and you his number one. So basically, you and Chrysanthemum are going tit for tat over who Ron likes more. Grow up. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about when all the guys met up so they can deliberate. So, we already know who everybody is liking. Of course, we have, what's his name? Chris, he's really feeling Amber. We have Joel, of course, he's feeling Vernisha. AJ's feeling Kyra. What blew my mind was that Jason, when they asked him, he's like, Liz. I'm like, so what about Kyra? You ain't thinking about her now? Just because you saw Liz's body yada yada? Okay, sorry. So, talking about the ladies that they're not feeling, though, they talk about freaking frack. The guys were not feeling it. And specifically, they were not feeling Stacy because she was very pushy. I've already called it out about Stacy. I was not feeling Stacy from episode 1 because of what she did to Christian. Because she literally stirred that pot up to have all the ladies looking at him crazy like he's too timid instead of actually trying to have a conversation with that man. So, I've been looking at her sideways since then. So, when it comes down to it, it's Stacy and Tressa. And all the guys are like, yeah, she the homie. They've already friend-zoned Tressa. Most of them never even gave her a shot because her body type is not what they like. Like, let's just call a thing here. They don't like curvy women. No, I'm sorry, or if they do like curvy women, they want, not plus size. They want you to have Instagram model body. So, when it comes down to these two ladies, I thought, okay, great. We're going to see Stacy go home. But they surprised us because David met up with Stacy. She should have knew right then and there her ass was going home because he was not feeling her after that Pilates date. And then we had Joelle and Tressa. They meet up. She thinking that this is like a nice little date that they're about to go on. Come to find out, no, baby girl, he's telling you that you're going home as well. So, both of these ladies cried, though. Stacey out here crying talking about she feels cheated because she thought, she was doing this process and she was going to find somebody, and this is her repping for her kids and all this stuff. I'm like, girl, your kids ain't got nothing to do with this. Listen, Stacey just did not carry herself in the way that she probably should have. Instead of trying to be Chrysanthemum's mouthpiece and her bestie, you should have been trying to make connections with other guys. You should have been trying to peek around with AJ and see what's going on with him. Because what happened with that? Y'all seemed like y'all was getting along at one point. And then as far as Tressa goes, I actually felt really bad for her because she knows that the reason why these guys are not interested in her is because of her body. And that's messed up. Like, honestly, I really want at the reunion for someone to call this show out, because either Tommy in production needs to give Tressa an apology because y'all brought her on this show and y'all did not vet the guys to know if they would even date a curvier woman. So you wasted her damn time. I just feel like it's unfair to be like, ooh, we're going to have our token plus size woman here, but then you don't have no options for them to date. No, don't waste somebody's time like that. Honestly, I feel like the only reason why they even kept Tressa around this long was because they didn't want to seem like bad guys. Because, if they would have sent her home the first day, everybody would have been on social media calling them out. But guess what? We're still calling you out because none of you guys are open-minded. Y'all all want the same girls who look exactly the same. I feel like I have said a mouthful for this review of the show. Let me know what you guys thought about the episode. Go ahead and like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.